a world within our world. They've created a world unlike any other world.
Dungeons and Dragons. And a game like D&D fuels their imagination and makes them feel special.
The ogre is amused by your joke and allows you to pass.
Dad, I'm just curious. What is it about Dungeons and Dragons that suddenly leapt out at you at age 60?
Dungeons, it'd be the dungeons.
Just what I love about role-playing games is being told exactly what to do.
Me too. You should introduce yourselves.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to CFRU 93.3 FM, Guelph Community Radio. My name is Mike the Birdman, and this is The Spellbook, the show that is dedicated to the tabletop role-playing game hobby. It could be Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, Alien, Battletech. You don't know, I don't know, but I'm not alone as I sit down with my pad, paper, and a world of possibility and ideas from the Feywilds of London, Ontario, Canada.
Welcome from the darkness of the Forest City. I am Damien, Magical Hack.
And we are talking about, obviously, stuff that is all things fantasy, all things cyberpunk, all things whatever. This is a show about homebrew. And this is a topic that almost fills me with dread. Mostly because last week on the show we talked about horror tropes, and I said at the end of the show, homebrew scares me, and I don't know where that fear precisely comes from, because you said something just before we came out on air, is that people homebrew more stuff than they realize. And to give you folks an idea of what homebrew is. So when you're creating your tabletop role-playing games, depending on the system, let's say the system is the engine that makes the game work, whereas the setting or the world that you're playing in, that's the car. So if this was D&D, if we were playing D&D, we have the 2000 whatever rules. That's the engine that makes the game run. But the outside could be Faerun, which is Forgotten Realms, or Eberron. So Toyota Corolla, Ford F-150. I'm not a car person. I don't know anything. They all run on magic as far as I'm concerned. But those are worlds. Those are distinct settings. But sometimes you create something all your own. You may take an existing rule system and layer a world on top of it, or you may modify an existing world with a little bit of tweaks here and there, which is more what I'm to do. I always consider myself, if you give me the toys and the sandbox, I'll create something cool. You hand me a box of Legos, I'm going to cry because I don't have instructions. I'm not that kind of DM, even though maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Damien, where do you fall on all this?
I myself, I'm the person that if you hand me the box of Legos, I will be entertained for hours trying to see what I can come up with. Homebrew, like relating to the topic at hand, homebrew is, at least from my understanding, is you're essentially just taking what's there and creating something new. It could be a whole new world setting. That's one of the ones that I'm the most familiar with, because that's usually what I've done with most of the games that I've run. Like, I don't like running for any of the established settings. I like making my own. So that's one of the areas that I like to customize. Another place too that homebrew crops up a lot, to varying degrees of being done well, is character classes, backgrounds, and items. Now I think it, like, in my opinion, it takes a reasonable amount of work to make homebrew, especially for some of those smaller items, such as, like classes, backgrounds, etc. It takes a little bit more work to make those work and be balanced, I think. And that's where a lot of the problems with homebrew, at least in my opinion, arises.
I think with me and homebrew, I focus less on mechanics and I focus more on the setting itself. Like, I want my world to be unique. I don't know. Actually, no, let me back that particular truck up. I want my world to feel lived in. I want it to have history. I want you to, if you're clever or if you're a big fan of a world, like let's say Star Wars, for example. If I mention, I went to Dantooine before we arrived on Coruscant, I want you to recognize, Dantooine, that's where the Rebel Alliance had a base at one time, but then they abandoned it. Or, oh yeah, there was a temple on Yavin 4 before the Rebel Alliance showed up. I love layering in Easter eggs so people can like, oh, he knows his stuff. And maybe I don't know if I'd call it, you know, I'm trying to figure out the word without being offensive. um, like I want my players to have I want their knowledge and excitement to be rewarded. When I create, this is the lovely world of Ancilii, and that is the Queen Regent of Bufar. You don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just making it up. And while that may be interesting and I'm super creative in that regard, I don't think I'm giving you the buy-in that you want. Like, I'm not George R. Martin. Well, unlike him, I actually finish the books I write. Burn. Or, I'm not Ed Greenwood, who wrote The Forgotten Realms. I'm not R.A. Salvatore, who writes, the Dritz novels. I want my world already fleshed out. So when I start to throw interesting things at you, you're familiar with it, because I want to reward that, that knowledge. Because if you're willing to read something or watch something, you've already kind of bought in
Yeah.
with it. And that's my big issue, because like whenever I try to get new people into a game, it's very hard. And I've only ever had it successfully executed maybe twice. When I tried to introduce new people to a Shadowrun game, which is a cyberpunk universe where magic and technology exist. You've heard us talk about this game countless times on the show. But to get people into it, there's a couple of video games that's an awful lot of investment for you to go like, hey, go play Shadowrun and tell me what you think. Or here's a commercial from 1993 that is hysterical. Or I want you to read 30 pages. Now, you and I, Damien, as Game Masters, know it's a hard enough time to get someone to read their character class abilities in a PHB. Player's Handbook, for those of you that are following along at home. It's a lot harder to get someone to read 30, 40 pages of universe setup so they get involved. So that's why I prefer doing established settings, because if we all agree we're playing D&D, we're playing BattleTech, we're playing whatever, now you know what I'm talking about, and I can really start to layer in the world. Even with creating my own mechanics. I mean, you and I are experiencing this right now, because you are playing an artificer in my one game, and we're trying to decide, well, okay, how do we homebrew this, but how do we make this still in the spirit of the rules that it works, but I want you to have excitement with it too. So we're kind of collaborating the homebrew experience right there. And I'll admit, it's intimidating because I never want to unbalance anything, but I never want to take away your sense of fun and wonder either. Like homebrew, it's something that terrifies me because I don't think I'm good enough for it. And maybe that's, I don't know, Damien, is that imposter syndrome or something?
I think I think you are underestimating your ability to balance things. And what I mean by that, like, you have a fair amount of TTRPG experience working with the established and set rules.
Mm-hmm.
You know basically how things should work. I think what a lot of people miss, and in a lot of cases, I think it's inexperience that causes this, is that when you're creating homebrew, and this is actually one of the things that I really liked from the 3.5, the D&D 3.5 Dungeon Masters guide,
Mm-hmm.
because it did actually have a section on creating your own stuff as a GM and creating your own homebrew and house rules and stuff like that. And basically, the best suggestion it had is find something that's already in the game that's similar to what you want to do, and like look at how that's balanced. Say, you want to create a new spell that's similar to Fireball, but it has maybe different elements or has some different effects. Take a look at Fireball. Okay, maybe because you are gonna have it have a sleep effect and it's gonna do psychic damage as well. Maybe take a couple of the D6 out so it doesn't do as much damage as Fireball to counteract that effect. And now you have an area of effect spell at about level 3 that does psychic damage and makes people fall asleep. Maybe it gives them nightmares.
Ooh.
You see what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So working with and creating Homebrew can be as simple as that. And from there, from that basic idea, essentially all you really need to do is go, okay, so how damaging do I want this to be? So do I want to remove maybe half the D6 and it does half the damage of a Fireball, but it also puts them to sleep? You know what I mean? And then it
Yeah.
changes it from, say, a dexterity saving throw to a wisdom saving throw.
I like that. That's clever. I mean, like if I was gonna reflavor Fireball, I'd probably I've seen other spells do it, but I would probably just change it from fire damage to ice damage and
Yeah.
literally turn it into a Sub-Zero fireball thing.
Yeah, I've
Maybe
seen
with a chance to immobilize, maybe.
Yeah, I've seen that happen, and yeah, if you're gonna add like a freezing, like slowing immobilization effect, yeah, I would say knock like 2 of the D6 off because you are adding that extra effect. You don't want to make it stronger than Fireball,
Mhm.
unless, of course, what you're gonna do is instead of making it a 3rd level spell, make it a 4th level spell.
Okay.
Then, in addition to doing the same damage as Fireball, it adds that extra effect on a failed save.
Mhm.
Boom, there you go.
Yeah, like Homebrew, it's something I'm so uncomfortable with, but I see, pardon me, so many examples of people doing some really outstanding work. Like I know there are so many YouTubers, people like Pointy Hat, D&D Shorts, the Dungeon Dudes, people like that, Ginny D, creating all these outstanding homebrew items and classes, especially with Pointy Hat. Like, hey, here's a brand new subclass for a bard or whatever, completely 100% for free or whatever. That takes a level of mechanical expertise, a level of creativity that sometimes I wonder, do I possess? But again, I'm probably way underestimating what I can do. Like, for example, my friend Pete does a lot of really good homebrew stuff and has really created some really powerful character classes and subclasses for us to mess with. And it doesn't seem wildly unbalanced in our existing games. Like, he created this new bard that's like a war scald or something. So it's kind of like more of like a fighter bard kind of cross class. And I think there's like a drum ability that is kind of acts like bardic inspiration. I'd have to look at it. But I always thought like that's really creative. Why can't I do that? But I wonder if I've just never tried. So
like,
yeah.
That's the thing, is you don't know until you try.
That's very true. So we will have more discussions on homebrew here on the Spellbook, right here on Guelph's Community Radio 93.3. 250 watts of amazing power that you should be checking out. So I've been Mike. That's been Damien. We will be back right after this, right here on the Spellbook.
Hey, this is Hayden from Metz. You're listening to CFRU in Guelph.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU, Guelph Community Radio, as we talk about homebrew. And yeah, like as you were saying, like, And, as I mentioned, it's a lot of it is kind of getting out of your own head as far as creating homebrew. And one of the things I'm going to warn you about now is we're going to be in the game that you're running that I'm playing in. You're going to be looking at some homebrew items being made because I have ideas.
Well, it's always so strange. So one of the big things that I would almost consider a tabletop role-playing game trope at this point is unbalanced items. And I think I would kind of wonder if maybe that is kind of giving me a bad perception of homebrew, because homebrew isn't not necessarily just rules and character classes, subclasses, abilities, spells, even. It's items too. And
Yes.
there's like, how many people have told stories about, oh yeah, I got a +5 sword that auto crits and deals this, that, and the other thing. And while I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, I'm not going to item shame here. I want you to have fun, but at the same time, I'm not going to give you an auto shotgun in the Forgotten Realms. Um, you can justify it all you want, but like I'm so homebrew items terrify me because I'm always wondering, what did I forget? Is there any way this is going to come back to bite me in the ass? And even in certain games, even with like character classes and other things that have been said to be, oh yeah, this is just how it is. Like, I know with artificers in particular, I don't think I've got a problem with, but certain infusions, for example, for those of you keeping score at home, an infusion is your ability to add a magical property to a mundane item.
Yep.
Specifically, this item is a bow that has infinite ammo.
Yes. Repeating shot.
Yeah, repeating shot, which is a wonderful thing because on one hand, mechanically, it eliminates the need to carry ammo. And what does that mean for you as a character? It means you don't have to carry a quiver full of arrows and keep track of that, or crossbow bolts or whatever. That's one thing you have to keep track of that now you don't have to. Number two, it is almost an element of narration that is taken away, because I always interpret repeating shot ammo as once it hits the target, it disappears.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so now you don't get, oh, I hit the guy and the arrow sticks in his arm and now he can't flex it. Now he takes the shot, he takes the damage, but now I don't have the imagery of the arrow stuck in the armor or something like that. And I don't know, and it's always one thing, because I used to say I'm not going to keep track of ammo. It's going to be dramatic ammo. You run out when I say you do. And I realized entirely too late in life, that's not really fair. Because if I'm telling the story and I decide to randomly raise the stakes, that's a douchebag move to do to players. If I suddenly say, and I can recall the exact moment when the first person in my life ever called me out on it. We were playing Shadowrun, which is again, as I mentioned previously, a cyberpunk futuristic game. Guy had a what is known as a Panther assault cannon. Awesome weapon. Basically, think of a state-of-the-art bang bang. And this thing dealt so much damage, Damien, it could have taken out a dragon realistically in about 2 shots.
Nice.
And I gave it to him at level 1. He had the money. What was I to do to argue? He had the cash. He could justify it. Cool. I decided I didn't want that. And I robbed him of it because I said, oh, you go to fire your assault cannon at this ghoul, click. What are you talking about? I have 1,000 rounds of ammo. Doesn't work. What happened? Oh, the ammo is fake or was duds. And this guy threw a tantrum at me. And I don't, in retrospect from 1997, I don't blame him. Because I was a young, stupid teenager. But I'm also kind of looking back at that now, thinking that was a really douchebag move to do. And I didn't have to do that.
Like, it was, I think, like, okay, so handling ammo narratively, I think can be done really well. I've seen a few GMs do that where it's like, okay, you have as much ammo as the story needs to have. Now, when they buy the weapon and you're like, yeah, all of the ammo was duds, little bit of a jerk move.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. The best way I've seen it done is you run out of ammo on a fumble. Like if you crit fail, okay, yeah, you click, you ran out of ammo. That's the result of you critically failing. That way, it does feel a little bit more fair. And maybe it's you run out of ammo for that clip, and you have to spend, your next turn reloading or whatever, or something along those lines. But I think handling something like that narratively can be done well.
And that's a homebrew rule.
Yeah. For a lot of systems, it is, especially for things like D&D and things that are a lot more simulationist by design. But with items specifically, one of the things that I like to do, pardon me, oh, water in that. Okay. Is I like to make things. Hence why in our game I'm an artificer, because I want to be able to make all of the things, and a lot of the things that I want to make don't necessarily exist in setting. We had a conversation earlier about essentially a prosthetic arm that I want my character to design eventually, where it's like using monster parts harvested from monsters like spider silk and stuff like that to make it so that it has more functions than the one that you would find in the D&D materials type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much a homebrew thing that I think, in order to do well, requires a conversation between the player, in this case myself, and the GM. Because what it comes down to, in my opinion, is balance. You don't want the item to be super strong, but, looking at it from a GM's perspective, you don't want to yuck the yum of your players.
Mm-hmm.
Type deal. So it's a fine line to walk. And like I said earlier, comparing what you're trying to make, be it as a GM that's like, hey, I have this idea for this item, I want it to do this thing. Okay, this is as powerful as a ballista, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a man-portable weapon, some magical anti-tank rifle or something like that. Okay, so the pricing, because it's man-portable, it's a lot smaller. It had to be magic that, you had to use magic to make it, or some sort of advanced fantasy technology. If a player wants to buy this, it's going to have to be 3 times the cost of what a ballista would cost, because of the factors needed to create it. That's one good way to kind of balance stuff like that, especially higher power mundane items. Because what's something that every party of adventurers has, usually in abundance after all? Gold.
Yeah, like it's when it comes to like managing all these things, there's so many different factors you have to take in as someone who's trying to balance things appropriately for your
Yeah.
players. But you also want to make it interesting too, because I love the idea when you and I have been collaborating about this homebrew. And I think that's a very important point to bring up when you're doing any sort of homebrew with your players. It has to be collaboration. You really got to talk things out, really got to work together, that you're on the same page. So they're fulfilling the adventuring fantasy that they want to live, and you as a game master are still able to tell the story that you want in a way that doesn't feel overshadowed by somebody's power, or like power spike, or the MacGuffin that happens to save the day. Like, you're not going to give out the Infinity Stones in session 1, but hey, maybe you are, and you can make that work.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, like I said, homebrew, it's still, it, for certain things, it's hard for me, but in other settings, it feels so much easier. Like, I could homebrew a cyberpunk thing with relative ease, or something now, like create like a sci-fi fantasy thing. And there's actually something that's going to be happening. I think it goes until the end of this month. There's a company that that developed the I think it's called I'm trying to remember the name of it now, Shift, which is an RPG put out by Hit Point Press. And right now, until the end of the month, they're doing a game jam for you to develop your own worlds. And this is the first time I'm actually going to take a leap of faith into homebrew, because I want to develop a spy setting, because they don't really have one. And I'm going to take inspiration from things like 24, The Born Stupidity, stuff like that. The Division. Like, I want to create a spy world, and maybe I'll put some magical stuff into it too. And that, for some reason, I'm more comfortable dealing with homebrew when it's in a world I understand, if that makes any kind of sense. Like, certain settings I feel are harder to develop homebrew for, like fantasy. I think I'd say that's easy in some ways, but when you start to detail a world like sci-fi settings, like your Star Treks and your Star Wars, when you start dealing with, is it science fiction or is it science fantasy, you start to come into some new things where it comes to making all these other sort of creative decisions you may not necessarily have expected. We're definitely going to expand upon this as we go into the break in just a couple of moments. But before we go to break, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you find certain genres easier to develop homebrew for or not?
Okay, so I don't necessarily think any one genre, like looking at them all equal. I don't think any one is harder to create homebrew for than another, but I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that it's a lot easier for you to come up with homebrew in settings you feel comfortable. Because if you feel comfortable working in a setting, be it fantasy, cyberpunk, Star Trek, Star Wars, what have you, you're going to have a better understanding and a better familiarity with how things work, be it on a narrative or mechanical standpoint. So I definitely think that is going to have a quite an effect on how easy it is for you to homebrew something.
Okay. Maybe when we come back from the break here, maybe we'll do a very fun thought experiment, because you and I developed a dungeon about a month and a half ago here on the show, our white
Yeah.
collar prison. And I
Yeah.
really thought that was super clever. So I think when we come back from break, if you're cool with it, let's create something back and forth again. I think that might be kind of fun, and we'll see what
Okay.
we can come out with. So we will be taking a break here, guys, right here on the Spellbook, airing right here on CFRU 93.3 FM, Guelph Community Radio, and exclusively on thisweekingeek.net. When we come back, we are going to create. We're going to go to the kitchen and cook, and we're going to see if it's blank and raw or something interesting. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on the Spellbook.
Hey folks, it's your girl Amarawa, and I run a show called Radio Perg. So Radio Perg is our weekly spoken word show on CFRU 93.3 FM, Guelph's campus and community radio station, where we showcase the exciting work OPERG is doing and talk about current issues in the community related to social and environmental justice. Generally, the show consists of recorded talks, live and pre-recorded interviews, spoken word pieces, and music. Listen to us on Thursdays from 3 to 4 p.m. at 93.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU, Guelph Community Radio, as we create some homebrew.
Oh boy, where do we start here, Damien? It's weird. I'm the writer of the group, and I kind of do this all day, but I'm always given a setting. Like, hey, Mike, write some Star Trek today. Okay. Or here, Mike, write something spooky. Okay. Now put it into a game. I don't want to. Um, so you and you've brought me to your sandbox. You have your sandbox and Legos. This is you. Let's create. What are we doing? What's the genre?
Okay, you know what? Let's go back to something that we're both fairly comfortable with. Let's do something fantasy.
Okay.
Um, Ooh, you know what? Let's create a spell.
Okay.
Um, so I want this to be something like a legendary spell. So something that would be pretty rare to see in the world. Maybe only a few people have it. So something maybe not wish powerful, but close to that.
Okay. Here is my idea for that. Now we have spells like mass suggestion, mass heal, stuff like that. I want to take that to its final evolutionary step. Mass raise dead. Now, I'm not talking about creating zombies because that's animate dead, that's easy. But a legendary spell like mass raise dead or mass resurrection, that's what I want to call it. Mass resurrection. I want it to be something very impactful. So let's say your adventuring party gets wiped out or something and you have a survivor. Rather than go on a quest for a wish spell, maybe you learn this mass resurrection, which can raise up to, I don't know, your proficiency bonus in characters or something. This is where you will come in mechanically. So there's my idea. Mechanically, how does this work?
Okay, so let's open up because basically what I would do at this point is we're now going to take a look at get to the top of D&D Beyond here. Let's take a look at some spells that are already in the system. Since we're looking at like essentially a D&D spell. Oh wait, pop up. Fine, I'll just accept all your cookies. Don't. So I'm picturing this as kind of a 9th level spell.
Oh yeah.
With what we're looking at here. Let's take a look. Now, also, I would say this would be a cleric spell
Okay.
specifically. Because of how powerful it is. I think it should definitely be class limited.
Okay.
Because like you're gonna want this as kind of like a capstone for some. This is like this is essentially a capstone spell. So now, just looking at True Resurrection, which is currently a 9th level spell. Close wounds, and yeah. So if the body doesn't exist, they get they appear within 10 feet of you, and you need diamonds worth 25,000 plus gold pieces to do, which get consumed. Now, what I would say is it would be, I would think that you would need 25,000 gold pieces worth of diamonds per person resurrected.
Oh wow. Okay, so it's really expensive.
Well, okay, so maybe cut it down a little bit, but if you're going to be reducing the amount of the diamond cost, you would need to add a minimum amount of people resurrected.
Okay.
So I would say if let's say you cut it down to 10,000 gold pieces per person.
Okay.
So a little bit over half. I would say that there would need to be at least 3 people resurrected.
Okay. I like it.
Because that is going to prevent the one person that you know is going to be in the group who's going to be like, okay, so instead of using true resurrection, I'm going to use mass resurrection on this person, and it's only going to cost 10,000 gold.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's going to prevent some of those nefarious uses. Other than that, I think the range should be, I would say, limited to like 10 feet
Okay.
around the caster. Again, that's going to prevent any like really big shenanigans. Of like, okay, yeah, I'm in Waterdeep and I want to resurrect everybody possible for me to resurrect in Silvery Moon. Or anything like that. Like, you want it to be fairly close to the caster. So the caster has to be there. That is kind of how I would balance that.
Okay.
Because it's going to have a material cost for resurrecting. And even with the regular resurrection spell, let's just pull that up. Resurrection. Spell that wrong.
Because like the idea of having a spell like this could be a real adventure setter, or could be a goal of a campaign after a tough adventure. So to give your players kind of a breather, maybe you play a smaller adventuring party seeking out someone who has this spell, and you bring the surviving player to this person, or bring the knowledge back. So you could almost run two concurrent campaigns with this, which might be kind of a fun little side quest, such as it may be.
Yeah. One thing that I think you could do with this too is kind of following those same lines is this is a lost spell. There's only one known scroll of this spell in existence, and it's in insert perilous place here. And you then have to go and retrieve it for, the this high-ranking cleric that's trying to bring back some mighty heroes that are needed, or what have you. Maybe it's the impetus for the adventure is more self-centered, and your cleric is trying to find the spell to resurrect their family.
I like that, because that makes the stakes a lot more personal.
Yeah. And yeah, like, honestly, even if looking at this, okay, so I think the gold piece cost. So now, actually, the question is: do you make it as powerful as resurrection, or do you make it as powerful as true resurrection?
What is the mechanical difference?
Okay, so resurrection. With a touch, you revive a dead creature that has been dead for no more than a century, didn't die of old age, and wasn't undead when it died. Comes back with all of its hit points, neutralizes poisons, closes mortal wounds, restores missing body parts. And they take coming back from the dead is an ordeal. They take -4 penalty on D20 tests every time the target finishes a long rest. The penalty is reduced by 1. So basically, after 4 days, they're back to normal. But for the first 4 days, any time they have to roll a D20 for something, they take a -4 penalty. Casting the spell to revive a creature that has been dead for 365 days or longer taxes you. Until you finish a long rest, you can't cast spells again, and you have disadvantage on D20 tests.
I would use that, because I think, considering what the spell is taking out of you, I think that's a fairly fair compromise mechanically.
Yeah. And then True Resurrection, it removes the strain on you. It removes the strain on the person coming back, and you can resurrect a creature that's been dead for 200 years. And true resurrection lifts any curses.
Yeah, I think that would work. Like I think if we kept it to it hurts you, or at least it drains you,
Yeah.
there's a cost, there's a narrative explanation as to what is going on. Yeah, I think this is a spell you could literally build a campaign around. Because I love the idea that you said there's only one scroll. So the knowledge for this is extreme. It's basically an artifact.
Yeah.
At this point, it's an artifact spell. I don't know if such a thing exists. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I love this idea. Okay.
In that case, I would reduce the cost to closer to what it is for resurrection. I would say 1,000 gold piece diamond per person resurrected, because of the downsides to the resurrection.
I'm going to counter with you have to collect 1,000 GP of a diamond, a ruby, a sapphire, and a piece of I don't know, jade or something. For everybody you want to resurrect, you have to collect a different stone. You couldn't use 2 diamonds, but you could use a diamond and a sapphire. Yeah, so I'm going to throw
that.
Yeah, it's basically the discount version of the Infinity Stones via Temu. I think that's a neat idea.
That actually works really well because, like, narratively, each one of those stones would be, the conduit to a different soul, as it were.
Exactly, and you could say these stones have to have consecration or something related to the person you want to bring back. Like maybe you'd need a widow's tear, a child's laughter, or something. Really invest that narrative into it. I'm totally using this at some point, by the way, because this is cool.
You must bring me the laughter of a child.
I mean, and that's something too. Like I know we talked about in the last episode, we talked about horror tropes. This could be something that Faustian creature offers you. Thinking,
yeah,
I will give you this consecrated quartz, but in order for it to work, you must bring me the laughter of your firstborn. So you will save the wife or partner, husband, whoever, but that child can never laugh again. So what does that cost you? Is it worth it? And again, that brings up all sorts of narrative possibilities. I love this idea. That is really, really creative.
See, that wouldn't necessarily work for a bard, though, because you don't know if the child that they're trying to save is actually their firstborn or not.
That makes it even worse. Well, think about that. That's a whole new quest right there. Like, I don't know who my firstborn is. Well, then I guess they're not coming back. Oh my gosh. Now you have to go literally through D&D version of Maury Povich. You are not the father. Well, crap.
Even better.
Try again.
Even better. The bard agrees to it, knowing that they have, that their firstborn is somebody else. And it turns out that the prince of the kingdom can no longer laugh.
Yeah, like, because that would raise so many questions. So, like, what happened to Prince so-and-so? I love it. That's a cool idea. So we're going to take another break here on the Spellbook. And as we come back from our last break, we're going to detail out this fantasy world a little bit more. Maybe we'll involve our white-collar prison, because maybe this scroll, this forbidden knowledge, is hidden in the middle, but maybe we should detail the region around this coastal Arctic prison. What makes it so dangerous to venture forth? Well, we'll talk about that. So we will be back right here on 250 watts of community power. This is CFRU 93.3. This is the Spellbook. I was about to say, that's Mike. I'm Damien. That's not right. But maybe it is. Maybe I'm just having a day. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
Hi, this is Respectful Child, and you're listening to CFRU 93.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU, Guelph Community Radio, as we talk about Homebrew.
So when we had last left the break, we had created a legendary spell that was so rare that it only resides in one place in mystical realm X. It doesn't have a name. We probably don't have time to flesh out the entire world here, but instead we're going to flesh out a region. So several episodes ago, we created this white collar prison. We dictated its dungeon ecology, why it was there, where it was, how there was even a white dragon patrolling a piece of the prison you couldn't even see because it was hidden by a perpetual blizzard. So I'm going to give you a piece of the landscape, Damien, and then you're going to expand upon it. This area is in a desert like Mongolia. What does that mean for those of you following along? Mongolia is known as a frozen desert. So a desert is not necessarily hot like the Sahara. It just means lack of moisture. So this Arctic coastal prison is along a coastline. So in order to get to this place, you have to cross this impossibly cold desert. So what does that mean? Part of the ecology and the monsters that live there, there is a monster that is a permafrost golem that is taken by not absorbing moisture in the air, but ambient magical energy that animates the permafrost. And these creatures hunt. They don't want to kill you necessarily. They want to steal your body heat. They want to steal the moisture that makes you warm. So what do you do when you yourself, the fact that every time you exhale, you're basically launching a flare into the air? What is some of the background on this monster?
So, just with everything that we know about the region thus far that we've come up with, I'm thinking that, maybe these were the original guards. Like, not necessarily like for the prison itself, but for the surrounding area. Because
Okay.
while this was essentially like a white collar prison, they wanted to keep the prisoners in there. And they wanted to keep anybody who wasn't supposed to be in there out. So I'm thinking that maybe either in the prison still there is a gem or other crystal that's not necessarily controlling these permafrost golems, but keeping them active.
Okay.
And they're
I
just
like it.
basically following like the last orders that they had received.
All right. I like it. I like it. So these are the original guards. These are tied to the land. They hunt warmth and magical energy. What else might be in this region? I'm going to propose, and I'm taking this idea kind of from Ravenloft, where there's a group of individuals known as the Vistani. To give you people an idea of what I mean by that, the Vistani are a group of individuals that can travel across Ravenloft unmolested. What do I mean by that? It means Strahd won't bother them, who's this big bad vampire dude, but they're also the only people that can cross in and out of Ravenloft to anywhere else they want to go. They are not trapped by the mists. So, this group of this nomadic tribal people, let's make them barbarians is too easy. I want to make them thieves, and here's why. These golems, these original guards of the area, they steal heat. They steal magical energy. These people that can travel among these permafrost golems are left alone. Why?
So with this, I'm actually going to pull from one of the other nerdy hobbies that I've had in the past, and we're actually going to dip into some Warhammer 40K lore here.
Interesting. Okay.
So the Space Wolves are a group of Space Marines in the 40K setting. They are essentially space Vikings. The world that they live on, Fenris, is essentially an ice planet. And There is one of the novels. There's basically a story of somebody coming to Fenris, and as they're traveling with some of the people that some of the like people from Fenris, some of the like space wolves and whatnot, they they're just kind of breathing normally because they're not used to the planet. But the one individual tells them to pull up their scarf because they're letting out their heat. So maybe these individuals that we're coming up with here, maybe they get around and are can move amongst these permafrost golems unmolested because of how they dress themselves, and how they layer, and they don't breathe out directly into the air. They breathe essentially into their clothing using layered scarves and clothing and stuff like that to minimize the amount of heat that they lose. Not
Okay.
just to keep them protected from the permafrost golems, but also from the elements themselves.
Okay. I have an idea. Let's build some history for this tribe of people, let's call them. The reason they know how to do this is because these people are the descendants of the original builders of this prison, who were consequently the first ever successful escapees. Our prison has never been escaped from, except for the people who built it. So they were. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, that's my addition. Why are they trapped to this? I'm going to say they are trapped here. Why?
Okay. So they're trapped here. I think because we kind of want to relate this back to the scroll from earlier a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think these people are oath-bound to protect the knowledge of this mass resurrection. Maybe they weren't necessarily the first escapees, but maybe some of them were, but they swore to the person who came up with this mass resurrection spell, or their ancestors did, that they would keep that knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. And maybe it's hidden underneath where this prison is, unbeknownst to the current or possibly even original occupant of said prison.
We're going to have to put this in our game at some point. This is too cool a location to not use, just so you know. All right, so we got just a couple of minutes left here in the show. Let's come up with two more things. So you're going to throw the last pass to me, and then I will throw the final one to you, and then we'll wrap things up for this week.
Okay. So these this tribe of people, what were their original origins? Where did they come
from? Okay. So clearly they have advanced magic. They have a very detailed sense of honor. I'm going to say these people came from okay, here's my plan. They were originally inhabitants of an island off the coast of this prison, so they were already familiar with the land. When this prison came in, they made a deal with somebody incredibly powerful and said, we will allow you to build in our backyard. And as part of the deal for this prison, no harm shall come to the prisoners. And the warden or whoever's like, well, I can't do that. What are you talking about? When someone dies, you must bring them back. Justice must be served. So that was the original purpose of the resurrection scroll, was to bring prisoners back so they can serve their time, but so nobody suffers. So these people, that's why they're here. Their honor runs so deep, that life is so sacred, they cannot leave. My proposition to you is to come up with a name for these people and maybe what you would call their culture.
A name for these people.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the world would know them as the Watchers.
The Watchers, okay.
As far as their culture, that one's a little bit harder. I think they would probably we've kind of established, I think, more that currently that they would kind of be more of a nomadic, I want to say like ancient Mongolian style culture where they're consistently moving around this area. Technically now both with and without a purpose since the prison is no longer in use.
I kind of see these people communicating in stuff that manipulates the permafrost or stuff that manipulates hardened dirt and sand. So kind of like in Canadian indigenous Inuit culture, there's the stone Inukshuks, I think they're called. I can see this culture leaving markers everywhere in this frozen wasteland that gives testament to their culture. And they lay out warning signs, sort of like, you don't want to go here, there's a permafrost golem, or if you choose to come here, understand why you're here. So they're leaving because their culture is so honor bound that if you're going to they're welcoming you in, but if you're going to do it, you need to understand why you're here.
Yeah.
And I think we could have some really powerful moments there. But unfortunately, we're out of time. My gosh, we could talk about this for hours.
Yep.
These guys are coming back. So anyway, David, if people want to get in touch with the show, where would they have to go?
Well, the absolute best way to get in touch with us would be dropping us an email at thespellbookshow@gmail.com or on our various social medias.
Like I said, guys, we would love to interact with you, have you on the show. Because, hey, if we can get some letters here, we'll definitely read them on the show and develop some really cool ideas based upon all the interactions you've had with us. Once again, it was so wonderful meeting so many of you at GriffCon a couple of weeks ago. It was a great time. Me and Damien are already planning for the GriffCon that will probably come up in the fall. So for the Spellbook on this edition of the show where we talked about homebrew, we have been.
I am Damien.
I am Mike the Birdman Ashby saying, in these troubled times, please do your very best to be excellent to each other, and we will catch you guys again next week, right here on Guelph Community Radio and thisweekingeek.net. We'll catch you guys next time.
It's not enough. We have a gallery of villains to look out for, but now we could be infiltrated by a shape changer. I can't even tell if any of you are acting strange because you've been replaced or because this group is full of weirdos.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Spellbook. If you happen to have any comments or suggestions, please send us an email at thespellbookshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're hungry for more, you can find Mike at thisweekingeek.net, covering a variety of nerdy topics, and Damien on YouTube at Magical Hack Makes for more TTRPG conversation.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.